Um, we've got a nice small group tonight. There are 10 of us on the call. So don't hesitate to raise your hand if you have any questions as we go through the presentation, or throw your questions in the chat box. I'll try to keep my eyes on the chat while I'm talking. And we'll also have some question and answer time at the end of the presentation. So today we'll cover a brief introduction to Building Bright Futures as an organization, review the history of the Vermont Early Childhood Fund and its growth through the Vermont Integration Project Birth to Five, which is also known as the Preschool Development Grant. We'll cover the grant timeline and the grant programs that we'll be offering this round. I'll explain the review process, and I'll show you how to access different resources about the grant, as well as the applications to the application portal. So Building Bright Futures, otherwise known as BBF, is established in state statute as Vermont's Early Childhood State Advisory Council and Network. We use this mechanism to advise the governor and the legislature on the well-being of children in the prenatal period through age 8 and their families. Our mission is to improve the well-being of children and families in Vermont by using evidence to inform policy and bring voices together across sectors and within regions to discuss critical challenges and to problem solve. Through Vermont's Early Childhood Action Plan, Building Bright Futures maintains the vision for Vermont's early childhood system, which is to be an integrated continuum of comprehensive, high-quality services that are equitable, accessible, and improve outcomes for each and every child in Vermont in the prenatal period through age 8 and their families. And we accomplish this through a network infrastructure. And that network includes 12 regional councils. There's one for each AHS region of the state, 7 VCAP committees, and the Early Childhood State Advisory Council. So as I just explained, Building Bright Futures is much bigger than this grant program that we're offering right now. But we established the Vermont Early Childhood Fund back in 2021, thanks to a contribution from a generous private donor. The same private funding was renewed in 2022 and 2023. And VECF was created to invest in regional creative solutions for gaps and needs that were identified through the network, primarily through the regional councils. And all of you are invited to become involved in the regional council in your area. On our website, there is a page for regional councils that helps put you in touch with the regional manager on staff for that area. We're super excited to be expanding the Vermont Early Childhood Fund through the preschool development grant that was awarded to the state of Vermont in 2022. So the state was awarded a planning grant back in 2019, which was followed by a renewal grant in 2022. This renewal grant it is really neat because it includes funding to benefit direct services and local programs with a special focus on underserved populations and children with special needs. Building Bright Futures is managing the subgranting process through this preschool development grant. But know that the federal preschool development grant is much bigger than just this subgranting process. There are actually 19 different activities that are managed through a variety of state agencies, as well as Building Bright Futures. Over the course of the next few years, funding will be provided in the amount of approximately $6 million in subgrants. So in the first 2 rounds of grants that were funded through the federal preschool development grant, Building Bright Futures has been able to award $2.8 million to 43 organizations. And this is just a graphic showing our spring awards that were made back in May. And some of the examples that I can share with you of grants that were funded were a pilot project in Franklin County that increases access to timely developmental assessments and coordination of support services for children with developmental differences. Another grant is creating a community orientation program in Chittenden County to help Spanish-speaking migrant families access critical services, connect them with other families, and increase family engagement in current systems. And a grant that we made this past spring is helping to expand access to seed certification in the Northeast Kingdom. Some of our opportunity grants are the work includes providing support groups to families with children that are either currently or previously in the neonatal intensive care unit, overcoming financial barriers to providing child sexual abuse prevention education in early education programs, hiring a bilingual community health worker to provide services to pregnant individuals and families with young children from immigrant communities. It's supporting the creation of a birth and postpartum doula training program. There's all kinds of workforce development through classes and training, including programs for high school students and new Americans, and training for existing early childhood care and education professionals in areas such as multi-tiered systems of support, universal design for learning, equity, diversity, inclusion, attachment, relationship-based caregiving, and child needs. In addition, funding's helping 13 organizations located throughout the state to create, reopen, or preserve nearly 300 early childhood care and education spots. You can read about all of the programs that have been funded in these last few rounds on our website, and I'll show you that at the end of our presentation. So the application portal for both of the grant programs that we're offering this round opened on Monday, and you can access them through the Vermont Early Childhood Fund page of our website. The portal will be open for approximately 5 weeks and will close at 5 p.m. sharp on Friday, September 20th. So if you're working on an application, make sure you hit that submit button no later than 5 o'clock on that date, as late applications won't be accepted. We'll be holding 4 virtual question and answer sessions, 2 of them on August 27th and 2 of them in September. And these question and answer sessions really are like open office hours if you have gone to college, where you can go in and ask any questions that you have. They're held in a group setting so that you can learn from the questions that other applicants are finding as they go through the application. We'll be making award notifications for this round in November. And the grant period for this round of grants is from January 1st through September 30th of 2025. And that's really important to keep track of if you are awarded a grant, because expenses that occur outside of the grant period cannot be reimbursed. And speaking of reimbursement, that's a really important thing to know about these grants. Because these are funded through the federal government, payments are made through a reimbursement process. And what that means is that you would pay for your expenses up front, and at the end of each month, you would submit an invoice using a template provided by Building Bright Futures, that's our organization, for your expenses. Once grantees receive notification of awards, we actually work one-on-one with our grantees to help them, to help orient them to the system, to the forms that we use, as well as the kinds of documentation that needs to be provided to be reimbursed each month. So, as I mentioned before, we're offering 2 grant programs this round, the Opportunity Grant and the Innovation Grant. Details about both of the programs can be found on our website, as well as downloadable copies of the application questions and budget template, a list of frequently asked questions, and the scoring rubrics that we'll be using. Hi, Julia. Thanks for raising your hand. Can I answer a question for you?
Hi, on the last slide, it didn't say
Yeah.
the date of the portal close or the application portal closing. Friday,
Oh,
September at 5 p.m. But which Friday is
oh
it?
my gosh. I'm sorry. Friday, September 20th.
Awesome. Thank you.
You caught a typo. Thank you.
No, I just want to make sure I'm not late.
Yeah, no, no, yep. Thank you for pointing that out. It is Friday, September 20th. And that information is on the website too. Um, please note that when you apply for a grant this round, you can only apply for one grant. And you have to choose between the Opportunity Grant Program or the Innovation Grant Program. So please be mindful of that. There's just to be aware, there's a lot of competition for these funds. And we recognize that there's a lot of need out there. And so we're trying to make sure that funds are available to as many programs as possible. So as a really brief overview, the goal of the Opportunity Grant is to address immediate needs within the early childhood system. We understand that the early childhood system has been underfunded for many years, and the flexibility that's provided through these grants will help meet needs that have been outside of some of the more traditional funding programs. Grants will range from $10,000 to $80,000, and we expect to fund 10 projects this round. Uh, excuse me. The innovation grant, the goal of the innovation grant is to develop system-wide solutions to difficult problems. These kind of solutions often take multiple years to pilot to determine if they are successful. So there will be a possibility of renewed funding for this particular round of innovation grants. Grants for innovation funding range from $100,000 to $200,000, and we expect to fund up to 2 projects this round. Yeah. So I mentioned before that this round of Vermont Early Childhood Fund grants is funded through the federal government. And due to the federal funding source, there are a number of items that cannot be funded. This is just a quick overview. You can find a more comprehensive list in the frequently asked questions document on our website. But know that paying people can be funded, so salaries, presenter fees, consultant fees, buying supplies and materials, the cost of training, education, or professional development is covered. And because this is a federal grant, you are allowed to use up to 10% of your grant funds for overhead or indirect costs. Things that cannot be funded for this grant, specifically construction of any kind cannot be funded. So whether that is a large construction project or renovating a bathroom or building a large piece of play equipment or installing a fence for your program, those things cannot be funded. We also can't fund anything that's a capital expenditure. And the definition of a capital expenditure, it kind of varies from organization to organization, but basically it's anything that you would depreciate over time and that you would add to your balance sheet once you purchase it. So you might want to consult with your accounting team about that. Funds also can't be used to pay off existing debt or pay for anything that's purchased outside of that 9-month grant funding window. Fundraising of any kind can't be included. So whether that's the cost of having staff or an outside consultant or a contribution to a capital campaign, that's not allowed. And also food, alcohol, and entertainment are not allowed. So in evaluating the grants, we use a review team model. where each team of 3 evaluators looks at and reviews applications based on a scoring rubric. You can actually find the scoring rubric on our website so you can understand how we're looking at your applications. Scoring for both programs is based on a rubric that evaluates how well the project fits with the Vermont Early Childhood Fund goals, how clear and realistic the project is, how well equity is incorporated into the work, and how realistic the budget is. For innovation grants, we're specifically also looking at to what extent the project addresses a persistent barrier or problem and the potential of the project to create systems level change. We also take a look at the entire award pool to make sure that funding is distributed throughout the state and it's distributed to a mixture of different kinds of projects. So this is the web address for our website. It's basically buildingbrightfutures.org/VECF. And I'm actually going to share the website with you right now to show you around. So this is the main page of our website. And on the main page, there are 2 ways to access the Vermont Early Childhood Fund information and application portal. And that's either by clicking on this pink highlighted arrow under where it says VECF grant applications now open that I just highlighted, or going through the What We Do tab at the top and scrolling down to Vermont Early Childhood Fund. So you notice in the first paragraph here, there are hyperlinks to a bunch of different resources and documents. You can preview the opportunity grant application and the innovation grant application. You can download those onto your own laptop and answer the questions in a Word document so that you can just copy and paste into the portal when you're ready, if you like to do that kind of a setup when applying for grants. There's also a link to the budget template that is available in the grant portal. You're also welcome to upload a budget of your own. The frequently asked questions document is really helpful. It basically compiles all of the questions that we receive from grantees and applicants in the first couple of rounds of funding into one document. So if you have a question, feel free to just browse through there. And that again includes that list of items that cannot be funded through these grants. Also, the scoring rubrics that I mentioned are here and here. And you can apply by clicking the Apply Now button for the Opportunity Grant here and the Innovation Grant here. The virtual question and answer sessions that I mentioned earlier, you can register for those right here. There will be one on August 27th at noon and at 6. And then again on September 12th at 1 o'clock and 6:00 p.m. And then information about the application portal closing on Friday, September 20th is here, along with more information about the timeline. You can read some basic background about the grant here and general information about the amounts of grant awards. And then if you click here for our most recent blog post about the Vermont Early Childhood Fund, that'll take you to a page that goes through and explains the grants. So with both the Opportunity Grant and the Innovation Grant, there are 4 primary areas of focus. One is equitable access. So that can be gained by training staff to include children with behavioral or developmental needs or disabilities. It can also be an expansion of an existing program, increasing support for trauma responsive care, increased access to developmental screening or pediatric care, and so on. And there are some more examples there. Improved quality is another area of focus for us. So if you have an existing program, even if you're not looking to expand, if you want to improve quality by purchasing additional supplies and training your staff, that's a great way to improve quality. Workforce development is also another really important area of focus. We understand that as early childhood care and education providers, there is a real shortage of workers out there for hire. And so programs that take unique approaches to developing the workforce, for example, in our round one grants, high school in Hartford reached out, their tech center reached out to expand one of their programs to include early childhood educators, a career path for early childhood educators. Another program that we funded is working specifically with immigrant populations to train a more diverse workforce. So those are important programs. And then the fourth area is family engagement and leadership and connecting families to services. So things like support for transitions between programs for families, piloting coordinated universal enrollment forms, or improving resource navigation for families are all really important. And then so that you can get an idea of the kinds of barriers that we're seeing, you can look at a map of our regional council priorities. And these were established back in May for the 2024 to 2026 time period. And if you look at, for example, in Franklin and Grand Isle, the regional council there is seeing a real need for access to basic needs and improving quality and capacity of childcare and early childhood education. In Chittenden County, again, access to basic needs is something a lot of families are struggling with. And the impact of substance misuse on children and families is also an area of focus. So I'm going to stop sharing and take some time to respond to questions. And so Mariah asked, why is the second question and answer after the close date of the application? So the close date of the application is actually on September 20th, but that second question and answer period is on September 12th. So it's scheduled about a week before the due date of applications, because I know a lot of people are really, really busy and they don't get around to the applications until the last minute. And let's see, we've already answered Julia's question. Are these grants for center programs only? No, not at all. We have awarded grants to family child care centers. We've awarded them to hospitals. We've awarded them to family child care homes. We've awarded them to, for example, one of the more recent awards was to, let me just look at the list. Oh, and I meant to share that too. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again so you can see some of the programs that have received awards. So if you go down to the bottom of that VECF page, you'll see our grantees from the spring 2024 round. And this is a list of the grantees by area of the state, by county. And then if you scroll down a little further, there's a little one paragraph write-up about each of our grantees. So for example, in this last round, we awarded a grant to Seed and Sow because they are looking to pilot a program in the Northeast Kingdom to make seed certification available to family child care homes and early childhood care and education centers for free. Because we understand that having training on emotional and behavioral issues with children is really important for staff. Another program in the opportunity grant area was to Good Beginnings of Central Vermont. to help expand their programs beyond Barre to some of the more rural communities in central Vermont, including things like wellness parenting workshops, caregiver meetups, and their postpartum angels program. Yeah, so I hope that answered your question about what kinds of programs we're funding. And again, that's just a really small overview. There are lots of different programs that we're funding that really are comprehensively covering that whole prenatal to age 8 age period. Let's see. I work at Jay Peak Resort Child Care Center. Are these grants something that we should apply for? Yeah, you certainly can apply for it. As long as you are providing care or services for children in that prenatal area to age 8, you are welcome to apply. Are there any other questions? Hi, Katie, go ahead.
Sorry, I was eating dinner, so I didn't want you guys seeing me supper down. So we're looking to expand transportation opportunities through an infant aquatics program that we're trying to open. But we would need the purchase of a van, and I'm having a hard time distinguishing if that would be considered a capital expense.
That is a capital expense. Yeah. Anything with capital expenditures, and basically anything that's like a permanent improvement to your program or project. And again, you know, one of the thresholds that we use kind of as a rule of thumb is anything that costs more than $5,000 is usually a capital expenditure. But again, that really varies from organization to organization, because some organizations set that threshold lower at like $2,000. And some organizations might capitalize the purchase of something like a refrigerator. Another organization might not. They might just treat it as an expense. So it really depends on the organization. I will share, Katie. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, would a rental be an option through this? I mean, it wouldn't be a long-term solution to the transportation needs, but it would provide a
right. Yeah, I mean, that is something that we could definitely consider, a lease or a rental, because it's not that capital expenditure. I'll share that we did do a transportation grant to another program in the first round, and they fortunately already had the van, and what we funded was a driver for the year. So sometimes you have to be a little creative in your thinking about what it is that you're asking for funding for. If you can take, you know, donations or funds that you have on hand and make those capital purchases with those funds, and then ask for funding for staff, that's something that we can do. The other, actually, Katie, because yours is an aquatic program, this probably wouldn't work. There are several other funding sources out there. If you're a nonprofit, First Children's Finance, I'm sorry, not First Children's Finance, that's a different organization. Let me just pull up. Vermont Children's Finance, Vermont Children's Trust Foundation, sorry. They actually fund nonprofits only. So if you're not a nonprofit, you're not eligible for this. But they're doing quarterly and emergency equipment grants right now. So that could be an option for you. Their website is vermontchildrenstrust.org. Other sources of grant funds, I'd love to share this information out, because definitely consider pairing our funding with another organization's funding, right? You're not limited to just apply to us. First Children's Finance that I mentioned earlier currently is doing a, let me see, what are they doing for a grant? They're currently doing planning grants for childcare construction projects. So it's not for the actual construction. If you're in a community that's in the really early stages of planning and you need feasibility funds or need to hire an architect to help with design, that's an option through them. They also have the Make Way for Kids grants that were formerly housed by Let's Grow Kids. And I know that they are preparing to launch another round of those. I don't know any of the details yet because they haven't finalized things, but definitely keep an eye on their website. Those generally tend to be tied to organizations that are accepting childcare financial assistance. Oftentimes, or at least in the last few rounds, I know that they were connected to either preserving childcare slots or expanding childcare. So great question, Katie.
Yeah, I'll look into it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? So I know some of you have applied in past rounds. Yeah, definitely go ahead and apply again. The only groups that are not allowed to apply this round are people who currently have funding. Because we really want to, again, make sure that we're getting funding out to as many organizations as possible. And if you have applied in the past, in the grant portal, you've already got your profile established, so you can just go in, review your profile, make sure that everything's up to date, and then start a new application. Hi, Gretel. Gretel Ann, sorry.
Hi, yeah, it's fine. I am a small residential daycare. I take care of kiddos 3 months to 12 years, and I'm looking to expand my outdoor classroom with like supplies and like getting all the children like all weather gear. Is that something that this would work?
Yeah, that counts under supplies. Again, as long as you're not installing one of those like $10,000 play structures.
No.
If you're purchasing like water tables or
Yeah,
sandboxes, that
exactly.
kind of stuff. Yeah, that stuff's allowed.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah. Any more questions for me this evening?
I was just wondering if it would cover mileage. I know you said salaries, but yeah, thanks.
Yep, mileage can be included. Yeah, in fact, when you go in, if you take a look at the budget template, it's actually broken down into 7 or 8 different categories, and the categories give some examples of what belongs in each of those categories, and mileage is definitely allowed. Also, parking, that kind of stuff is taken care of as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm actually going to stop recording. It's great to be able to